This is Fat to Fierce. Welcome to the Confidence Chronicles. I'm your host, Amy English. Join me on this empowering adventure towards a healthier relationship with food, body, and self, one delicious bite at a time. Hey there. Welcome back to the Confidence Chronicles. I am so glad that you're here. Today's not just another episode. It's a conversation I think we need to have. I am seeing so many women, maybe you included, struggling with food, with their bodies, and most painfully with themselves. Overeating, not trusting yourself, and not feeling free in your body. It is like walking around under a weighted blanket. It makes everything feel heavier and harder. That kind of struggle doesn't just show up at mealtime. It shows up everywhere throughout the day. And what I want to offer you today is a different lens, okay? And what I mean by that is a different way to look at this, a different lens to look through, all right? Because what if the answer isn't another plan, another rule, another fix from outside of yourself? What if the shift begins within? When you learn to break the cycles, rebuild self-trust, and create real freedom in your body. I'm talking from the inside out. All right. And that's what this episode is about. And I hope by the end you feel more in charge, more hopeful, and more empowered than when you pressed play. All right. Let's dig in. So let's start with overeating. Okay. What is an overeating cycle? Because it's not just eating too much. I mean, yes, of course, that's part of it. But really, it's a repeating loop that often includes a trigger. So a trigger could be an emotion. It could be restriction. All right. It's something that sets off the chain of events. And an emotion could be stress. It could be boredom. It could be sadness. It could be anger. It could be overwhelm, right? But there's a trigger that kicks things off. And then there's a response to that trigger. Okay. And the response could be overeating. It could be grazing. It could be binging, right? And then there's guilt or shame, typically followed by a promise to do better tomorrow, right? But then that leads to restriction. I'm going to do better. What does I'm going to do better tomorrow typically mean, right? Restriction. There's the trigger. And then the cycle begins again, over and over and over. Now, I do want to acknowledge the different types of overeating because I think it's helpful, especially like, let's just see if one of these resonates for you. Okay. Because there are various types of overeating. There's emotional eating, which I talk about at great length. That's using food to soothe or suppress feelings, right? So you want to suppress the overwhelm and, feel calm. Okay. There's habitual eating, and that's just snacking out of routine. Could also be boredom, right? But it's not physical hunger. Okay. So eating just becomes a habit. Then there is stress eating. Now, stress eating is very much a form of emotional eating, right? We're using food to alleviate the stress and feel better. But where stress eating also comes in is using food to feel in control when life feels chaotic. Okay. So that's just like another form of stress eating that could almost be a standalone aside from just another form of emotional eating, which I just think is really important to highlight. Okay. And then there's mindless eating, which is just zoning out like eating without awareness, which could also kind of be habitual. Okay. Some of these are going to overlap. All right. So that's mindless eating. And then there's the all or nothing eating, which is I messed up. I might as well keep going. Oh, I already had a cookie. I already screwed up for the day. Let's go ahead and eat all the things that I'm not usually able to have, i.e. restriction. Okay. So those are just some of the different types of overeating. I'm sure there's more, but those are the ones that came up for me that I wanted to highlight on this episode. And when it comes to the triggers, it's really important to remember that triggers aren't just about the food, okay? They're about feelings, all right? So stress, loneliness, pressure, perfectionism, anxiety, shame, and even happiness can be triggers, okay? Absolutely happiness. And here's the kicker, okay? It's not the trigger that causes the cycle. This is important. It's the reaction to the trigger. So it's the response. That's what causes the cycle. All right. Because here's the thing. And I'm just going to share this as an example. Do I still get stressed? Of course. Do I still have moments where I feel anxiety? Absolutely. Can there still be times when I feel shame? Of course, right? Are there times when I feel happy and excited? Of course there are, right? Those emotions, those feelings are all still very much a part of my life. I simply don't, I shouldn't say simply, that's a bad word to use, but I no longer have the response to overeat because of those feelings. Okay. That's how we know that it's not the trigger that causes the cycle. It's the reaction to the trigger. Okay. And I think this is just really important to note that, like, yes, so you break that cycle, so you no longer respond to that trigger. That doesn't mean you're never going to feel stress, anxiety, or shame or anything again for the rest of your life. No, you're human. You're going to feel all those feelings. They're all part of the package. Okay. You just learn how to feel them and allow yourself to feel them and recognize that they're part of the human package. You don't have to get swept up in them anymore. Okay. And you don't need to buffer them by eating or doing anything else. Okay. That's just really important to remember. So I want to state that again. It's not the trigger that causes the overeating cycle. Okay. It is the reaction to the trigger. It's the way you react to that trigger, whatever that trigger is. Okay. And really important to remember, you're not broken for overeating. You're responding to something. And once you understand that, once you can see how that loop is started, then you can change it. Here's a question I'm going to offer you to reflect on, and you might want to write this down. What situations or feelings make you feel most out of control with food? Like, what are they? Name them, call them out, allow yourself to see them through this different lens. Okay. I'll always say it. Awareness is the greatest agent of change. Okay. Once you see this stuff, you can't unsee it. Allow yourself to see it so that you can change it. Okay. So, what situations or feelings make you feel most out of control with food? What are your triggers? And then the backup to that is, what are you really needing in those moments? What could help? What would be beneficial? What would serve you better than overeating? Okay, just an important questions to reflect on. And as you sit with those questions and those answers, remember it's important to ask and answer those questions, right? This is where building self-trust is just super important. All right, when it comes to changing anything really, but especially to breaking this overeating cycle. And I mean, like, what when I say self-trust, like when you hear me say that, what does that mean, right? What is it? What is self-trust? Well, the way I look at it is that self-trust is the belief that you have your own back, okay? That your decisions, your needs, your boundaries matter, okay? It's the opposite of shame, second guessing, or even micromanaging yourself. That's self trust. And what does that mean to have your own back? I mean, really, to like you support yourself. You realize you're worth it. You're worthy. You matter. Okay. Just as much as the people you take care of and the people that you love. All right. It's really like learning that you're part of that crew as well. Okay. And one of the reasons that most diets, especially toxic diets, okay, destroy self-trust. Let me hang on. I'm going to break away from my little outline here because you know, that word diet has been just used and abused for so long. And yes, there are toxic diets that are just not healthy, that do a lot more harm than good. But really, I often think now the word diet is really just a way of eating. Okay, so what I'm talking about this right now is like where the toxic dieting destroys self-trust. Okay, and I just felt the need to clarify that. But most diets tell you to ignore your body, or they don't tell you that, like they're not using those words specifically. They're not saying, okay, ignore your body. But what they're kind of teaching it by saying, okay, don't eat when you're hungry, eat when we say, okay, eat at these times, eat during these windows, measure this, track that, count this, okay, all of that, all of those rules. And listen, I absolutely follow some of those rules. I track my macros like every day because I've learned how to do it drama free. All right. And also, tracking my macros does not take precedence over my body. Let me give you a fine example of this, okay? So I've mentioned before, I'm working with a dietitian right now, and it's been really helpful. And we're just trying to figure out what works for me to help me remove these 20 pounds that I gained in 2024, right? And so, we are kind of tweaking with macros a little bit just to see. The main focus is fiber. Okay. Fiber is my main focus. And so every day there is a certain amount of fiber. Like I have a fiber goal, right? Make sure I hit this fiber goal. And then I have very loose guidelines around the other macros like carbohydrates, protein, and fat. Okay. I say loose guidelines because like you'll hear why. Let me just get into this. So my main goal is fiber. But here's the thing, okay? I don't let that be the rule. The rule is how my body feels. And last night, for example, this actually happened. I did not hit my fiber goal. I was just a few points off of it, right? But I was satisfied. I wasn't hungry. I did not want more food. So I did not hit that number. Okay. That's what I mean by I listened to my body. If I was just going to eat more food just to hit a fiber goal, I would have been betraying my body because my body was physically satisfied. I did not need or want more food. Okay. And that's the difference. All right. That's the difference. So I still have these rules. Now today I will make some choices. I will make some choices to eat some higher fiber foods so that I can try to hit that fiber goal earlier in the day. So it's not 7 o'clock at night and I'm like, oh, I didn't hit my fiber goal, but I'm also not hungry. And I don't like to eat. I like to make sure that I don't eat at least 3 hours before my bedtime. And that's for lots of different reasons. Number one, I feel terrible when I go to bed on a full stomach. I do not want heartburn or indigestion or anything like that. And my hands tingle. Like I don't like it. So I make sure that I don't eat at least 2 to 3 hours before my bedtime. So anyway, so I'll make sure that I have more fiber earlier in the day, some more fiber rich foods to try to hit that goal earlier in the day. Right. But I don't go against my body. And that's the difference. So you can absolutely have some loose guidelines or some goals that you want to achieve, but you're trusting your body to know, like, if you're physically hungry, if you're not. All right. And you're listening to that. That's all part of trusting yourself and trusting your body. And let's face it, like, if you look at any of the diets, especially a lot of the ones that have been around for ages that are out there that want you to hit certain goals, oh, make sure you hit X number of carbs or X number of protein or whatever. What happens if you're not physically hungry anymore? Are you just going to eat to fulfill that goal, to meet that goal? That's where you're trusting something outside of yourself. Okay. And I think, listen, many of us have fallen into that line of thinking. It's just once you start listening to your body and trusting your body, that really shifts that whole piece of it, I guess, for lack of a better word. When we are listening to the plans and the people and the programs outside of ourselves telling us what to eat, how much we can eat, what we can eat, all of that, it's just reinforcing I can't be trusted with food or my body. Like, and it's behind the scenes. It's not fully conscious that's what you're learning, right? But that's exactly what's happening. And I think that is the main struggle most people have is because if you've been on diets for most of your life, there is that subtle messaging that leaves you thinking you cannot trust yourself with food or with your body. And then over time, that self-trust, it just erodes when you're kind of like stuck in that and you're continuing to rely on outside rules to feel safe. I've said this before and I will say it again. When you learn to start listening to your body and knowing your own physical hunger cues, okay, knowing the difference between physical hunger and mental or emotional hunger, okay, once you start to recognize that and really listen to it in your own body, that is going to change things tremendously. That is part of building self-trust, okay? And it is such an important tool, and it is one of the cornerstones of the coaching program that I teach, whether you do the self-study Fat to Fears program or you do one-on-one coaching with me, okay? That is a huge piece of it. Building self-trust is weaved into the entire coaching program, right? But let's just stay focused on this episode, shall we? Because I can feel myself getting into all kinds of tangents. All right. How the heck do you start rebuilding self-trust, especially if you're someone who has been in the toxic part of dieting for so long, for most of your life, probably, right? I mean, think about it. When was the first time you started dieting? Think about how long that's been, okay? So how do you start building self-trust when it erodes? Small wins. It's the tiny promises that you keep with yourself, okay? So a great example is again, knowing your physical hunger and eating when you're hungry. Stopping when you're satisfied, not worrying so much if you didn't hit your fiber goal, if you were a few numbers off, because it's okay. And you can practice again tomorrow, right? Like, again, today, my goal will be to try to hit that fiber number. Okay. That's what I'm going to focus on. And I'm going to eat foods like avocado, probably an apple, right? My beloved shredded wheat, y'all, that is my favorite cereal. And I laugh so hard every time I think about it because I used to, my mom used to eat shredded wheat all the time. And I'm like, oh, and now I'm like, what is it? I turned 50 and I love shredded wheat. What's happening? Anyway, so focusing on some more fiber rich foods that feel good for my body. That's going to be my focus. And I will say this, it's the same when it comes to the carbs and the protein, because again, like I have a very loose guideline of ideally where I'd like to be for the day. But if I don't hit it, I don't hit it. And I'm not going to just keep eating food when I'm not physically hungry just to hit that number. Now, if I'm still physically hungry and I haven't hit that number goal yet, fantastic. Let me have something to eat that's going to help, raise that goal, whatever. But if I don't, it's not a big deal, okay? And I think that's the whole point. All right. Anyway, tangents. Okay, small wins, tiny promises kept. This is how you start rebuilding your self-trust, okay? You eat when you're hungry. You stop when you're satisfied, all right? You talk kindly to yourself after a binge. Very, very important. Beating yourself up after a binge, there's zero benefit to that, okay? Like zero benefit. I don't know. I'm someone, if someone has a benefit to beating yourself up after a binge, I'd really love to hear it because I can think of none. Okay. It's not like it'll stop a binge from happening in the future. In fact, it probably just kind of enforces that it's going to happen again, right? Because you're going to feel worse. I don't know. Beating myself up after I binged never helped, and it certainly didn't lead to me stopping the binge eating. Okay. In fact, it just kept it going. So talking to yourself kindly after a binge, important, and another way of building self-trust. Talking to yourself kindly throughout the day. All right. Very important to building self-trust. Reminding yourself like that you matter, that you're important. Okay. All part of building self-trust. And what I want to say is that if it feels hard to do that right now, okay, like that's okay. It's absolutely okay, and it's understandable. It might take some time to shift to a different conversation with yourself, and that's okay. You got to look at it this way. If you've gone most of your life beating yourself up, treating yourself harshly, lots of self-criticism, like it's while I wish we could just wave a magic wand and make it stop and shift, like if I had that magic wand, I would absolutely wave that for every woman in the world, everybody in the world, okay? But unfortunately, I don't. I just don't know that magic wand exists. So if this has been happening for a long time, then it makes sense that it's going to take a little time to shift. So you start small. This is where we start with those baby steps, right? Just like baby steps. I was trying to think, there was something else we used to call them in coaching. I've always called them baby steps, but there was another term, and it's left my mind. I can't remember what it was. So basically, responding to slip ups with curiosity, not criticism. This is a great question that I used to ask myself in the very early days of breaking these cycles of overeating, right? And building my self-trust was like, so if I did have an emotional eat, or if like I did have an overeat or a binge, like, oh, what was going on there? What was that about? What happened there? Let's retrace those steps and see what happened. Okay. It's just a gentler way of looking at it versus I screwed up again. Oh my God, what is wrong with me? Why can't I do this? Okay. That is not going to lead to self-trust. Okay. In fact, that's going to continue to erode your self-trust. So when there's a slip up, okay, when a mistake happens, what was going on there? What did I need in that moment? Like what would have been a different way of looking at that? What would have been more helpful? What would have been a different way to handle that? Okay, what can I do different next time? All right, that's such a great question as well. And like keep commitments to yourself, not because you're afraid of messing up, but because you deserve the follow through. Okay. And I think that's really important. I'm doing that right now, actually. I don't know if I told you about this, and this could actually be a whole separate episode. I've decided to omit refined processed sugar for the month of July. So things like ice cream, cake, cookies, brownies, all the sweet treats, I've just decided to remove them. And each week I'm sharing on my various social media channels, I've promised to share an update. So just sharing, week by week, what's working, what's not, what I'm going to tweak or do different, so on and so forth. And so that's very much a commitment that I'm keeping to myself, not because I'm afraid I'm going to mess up, because I really don't think that I will. I'm kind of like, I got this. But it's because I deserve that follow through. Like, it's for me. It's so that I can feel better, because I know I feel better when I don't eat all the sugar, and y'all know I love buttercream, okay? Although it's been real interesting because June was a really sugary month for us because Rebecca and Ryan's birthdays are in June, and they had friend celebrations, and then we had family celebrations. Then we went to Buffalo for a few days, and I had a Paula's Donuts, okay? If you know, you know. All right. Like, let's put it this way. Paula's donuts are so good that I won't eat a donut from anywhere else. So like, I only eat donuts when we go to Buffalo and I get a Paula's. Like, they're so good. Anyway, my point, June was really sugary. So I've decided, like, let me omit that sugar as an experiment. I want to see how I feel. And each week I'm going to report in and just give a little bit of a recap. That I'm deserving of that follow through. Okay. That's how we want to start to look at this. This is all part of the new lens. Okay. It's a new way of looking. It's a new way of seeing yourself, a new way of looking at yourself. And it's really important. Share this. Self-trust is what gives you consistency. Okay. Not willpower, not perfection, trust. That is the key to consistency. Will there be moments when you falter? Oh, heck yeah. I still have moments when I falter. I just don't let them be that big of a deal. Okay. And that's the difference. Here's a fun little practice that I'm going to invite you to try. Okay. Listen, all these questions and ideas, these are all optional. Could they help? Maybe. Is it worth trying? I think so. So try this. Write down one small way you showed up for yourself today. Food related or not, doesn't matter. Just write down one small way. Let that be your evidence, because that's how trust is built, with receipts. Okay, so let's talk about being free in your body. All right. What does freedom in your body actually mean? It's not about looking in the mirror and always loving what you see. Okay. It is about feeling like you belong in your body. It's walking through your day without constant body checking, hiding, or negotiating. And why it feels so hard for so many people is because we live in a culture that profits off your shame. Think about that, okay? We've been told your body isn't good enough your entire life. When that's been the case, freedom can feel foreign. That's okay. It is still yours to reclaim. There is still time to do this. Plenty of time. And really what we want to do is we want to shift from fixing to caring, okay? Freedom with your body, freedom in your body begins when you stop punishing your body and start partnering with it. Okay. This is a big part about becoming friends with your body, becoming acquaintances with your body. If friend feels a little too far-fetched right now, that's okay. So instead of like, how can I lose this weight? Okay. Try, how can I support myself today? What would feel good, right? How can I help my body today? You can want to lose weight and still be kind to your body, still be friends with your body. One doesn't cancel out the other, okay? And I think that is really important for people to understand. The thing, if you're someone who is using medication or structured plans to lose weight, that is your choice, okay? Entirely your choice. But what I can share is that they all work so much better when you're also paying attention to your hunger and fullness, listening to your emotional needs, treating your body with respect, not resentment. Okay. Those weight loss tools can support you, but they cannot replace trust. There are some ways that you can practice being free in your body. Okay. Gentle movement that you enjoy. Okay. I'm talking exercise that you like to do, that you look forward to doing, not to punish. Okay. Not to punish yourself for eating too much or weighing too much or any of that. Okay. But just to feel good. Okay. Because our bodies were designed to move. Maybe it's going for a 5-minute walk. Maybe it's going for a 5-minute cycle, whatever. Just doing some gentle movement that you enjoy. Another way to practice freedom, being free in your body, clothing that fits you now. This was a big one for me because back in the day, I was famous for buying clothes that were too small because I would use them as quote unquote motivation, which by the way, never works. Anyway, it certainly doesn't feel good doing that. I don't do that anymore. But it's so important to have clothes that fit you now that you feel good in. And this is such a great way to practice that freedom. Like, and I'll give you another example. So I gained 20 pounds last year. And, as spring was coming this year and I hadn't lost that weight, a lot of my clothes from last spring and summer were too tight. Okay. And so what did I do? I went and bought myself some new clothes. Okay. I went and bought some cute capri jeans that were a size bigger. I bought some shirts that were a size bigger. I just bought clothes that I feel comfortable and confident in now in my current body. Didn't get a ton because, I am working on removing those 20 pounds and I have a lot of clothes that I still have in my closet. I haven't gotten rid of them, but I definitely got things that I feel comfortable in now. And that is so important. And another way to practice being free in your body is to really focus on those non-scale wins. All right. So I know we get so hung up on the scale, many of us, and I get it. But here's the thing. And I do think that the scale is, I think it's important to become neutral with the scale. And what I mean by that is just being able to get on the scale and check, because I think that helps you stay aware and know what's going on with your body as well. Not getting obsessed with it, not getting upset about it, right? So I think that being neutral with the scale is important. But for the purpose of this, we want to look at some of the non-scale wins as well. So better energy, maybe less food noise, feeling more comfortable and more confident. Like, look at some of these other areas. Maybe it is doing the gentle movement and knowing how that feels in your body and just celebrating that. Those are all what we call non-scale wins. All right. Here's the deal. You do not have to wait for the after photo to live like someone who matters, because you already do matter. So here's a quick recap of everything we've talked about today. Overeating cycles are patterns, not personal failures. Self-trust is a muscle you can grow, very important muscle that you want to grow. Body freedom is your birthright, not a reward for weight loss. And so what I want to invite you to do is pick one small action that helps you build self-trust. Maybe pause before eating and ask what you really need. See if you're physically hungry. Speak kindly to yourself after a rough moment. Okay. Do something nourishing, not punishing for your body. All right. And so now we are at the end of this episode, and I would just like to ask, how do you feel? Do you feel a little bit better since the beginning of this, since listening to this? Is there a part of your story that you see differently now? I would love to hear from you. Go ahead, send an email, amy@amyenglishcc.com. Let me know how you feel, what you notice, what's different. I'd like to know if you had an aha from anything you've heard on this episode today. All right. And again, if you have any ideas for future episodes, I'd love to hear them. I hope you have a great week. Oh, and one thing that I wanted to share with you before we go today, you deserve more than rules and restriction. You deserve peace. You deserve to trust yourself again. You deserve to feel free in your body because it's yours and you're worthy of living fully in it. And if nobody's told you today, you are doing better than you think. Listen, if this episode resonated, I hope you will share it with someone who needs to hear it. Be sure to leave a review, subscribe, and stay connected. This journey isn't meant to be walked alone. I'm going to re-record that. Hold on. Remember, you deserve more than rules and restriction. You deserve peace. You deserve to trust yourself again. You deserve to feel free in your body because it's yours. And you're worthy of living fully in it. And if nobody's told you today, you are doing better than you think. All right. If this episode resonated, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. And be sure to leave a review, subscribe, and stay connected. This journey isn't meant to be walked alone. All right. Until next time, keep reclaiming your power. One bite, one breath, one bold choice at a time. Are you ready to break free from stress eating and body shaming? It's time to get fierce. Fat to Fierce is a self-paced program that helps you build a new foundation of strength and balance without the toxic dieting mindset. This non-diet approach focuses on mindful eating, body acceptance, and lasting transformation. It's time to reclaim your power and find peace with food, your body, and yourself. Visit amyenglishcc.com to get started today.